Hey guys, how are you all doing? This is the MMA breakdown with my predictions for UFC Fight Night 29, Shields versus Maia, and super late with this video. Fight's going on tomorrow. Just getting my picks in, but let's do it. First up on the prelim card, Alan Patrick versus Garrett Whiteley, lightweight fight. Don't know anything about either of these guys. Patrick is the Brazilian, and Whiteley is an American. Both are undefeated. Whiteley seems to have more finishes, only one decision win. And Patrick has a lot of finishes as well, a few decisions. Couldn't tell you anything about either of these guys. I'll go with the American Garrett Whiteley. Next up on the prelim card at flyweight, Iliardi Santos versus Chris Cariaso. I haven't been impressed with Santos in his previous two fights, losing to McCall in his last fight, and before that getting steamrolled by Yuri Alcantara. Chris Cariaso, I remember when he fought Von Lee, and he went on a 3-fight win streak at that point. Beat Von Lee, Mitsugaki, which was a robbery decision. Mitsugaki should have won that fight. And Josh Ferguson. And after that, he's lost two fights. John Moraga got choked out, and his last fight got terribly out-wrestled by Jussier Formiga. Cariaso, kind of a technical guy, kickboxing and good ground control, but I'm going to go with Iliardi Santos. I think he's showed he's willing to exchange a little bit more on the feet. Cariaso, I think he's just kind of burnt out. I don't really see what he has to offer at this point. His last few fights have been pretty uninspirational. I'm going to go with Iliardi Santos by decision. I think he grinds it out. Next up at welterweight, Jan Cabral versus David Mitchell. Jan Cabral, remember him from Tough Brazil 2, won his fight to get in the house, and also won his first fight in the house. I believe he won both those fights by rear naked choke. A ground guy. Seemed pretty good on the ground, not amazing, but seems to get that rear naked choke. Don't know much about his stand-up game. And David Mitchell, this guy has been pretty weird for me in the UFC. He's 1-3 in the UFC, losing to TJ Waldberger, Paulo Thiago, and I thought he looked horrible in that Paulo Thiago fight. Just got dragged down to the ground every time Thiago wanted to take it there. And then had one nice win against Simeon Thorson where his stand-up looked really crisp and he seemed really improved. But then his last fight against Mike Pierce, he was doing well to keep it on the feet and fending off the takedown, but Pierce eventually just knocked him out brutally. I don't know, both guys we don't know much about, but Jan Cabral just seemed, like he's got more to offer in his last few fights on Tough Brazil 2. I think he'll be able to take Mitchell down, and I think he'll have the better jiu-jitsu and grappling. If Mitchell can keep it on the feet, I could see him outpointing Cabral there, but I'm going to go with Cabral by submission. Next up at welterweight, the last prelim fight, Ildemar Alcantara versus Igor Araujo. Igor Araujo, I just recently realized this was a guy from Tough 16 who did horribly on the show. Had the crap beaten out of him by Colton Smith, and fought someone else before that, or who he beat, but didn't look too good in that fight. Fought some American wrestler, and he's a jiu-jitsu guy. I don't remember much of his stand-up game. I don't think he showed anything there at all on the show, and doesn't even seem that capable on the ground. Ildemar Alcantara, on the other hand, his last fight was pretty boring against Leandro Silva. And before that, got the knee bar submission against Wagner Prado. I'll have to go with Alcantara just because he's looked better. Yeah, I think if Igor looks to take it to the ground, I think Alcantara will be better there. And stand up, I think Alcantara has more technique there. So Alcantara by decision. So a pretty uninteresting prelim card, and now onto the main card. Bantamweight, Rafael Assunção versus TJ Dillashaw. TJ Dillashaw, I was real high on this guy, going all the way back to the Ultimate Fight. I remember watching the very first episode of that season, Tough 14, and seeing the fights again to the house. I actually thought Dillashaw looked the best, and I picked him to win the show. Made it to the finals and ended up losing to John Dodson. But Dillashaw, he's got good wrestling, and his hands have developed a long way. Won his last two fights by knockout. Knocked out Issei Tamura with a head kick, and then his last fight knocked out Hugo Viana. Also landed a kick, I believe, in that fight, a head kick, but finished him with the hands. Rafael Assunção, on the other hand, he's been doing pretty well. Dropped down to bantamweight, and he's on a 4-fight win streak. His notable wins, knocked out Issei Tamura, decision Mike Easton in a pretty uneventful fight. His last fight looked pretty slick on the ground against Von Lee. Originally, I was thinking I'm going to go with Assunção. I think he is bigger than Dillashaw. I think on the ground he's got the better jiu-jitsu, the better grappling and stand-up. While he does have some knockout wins, he seems kind of like a guy who can disengage very well. Against Mike Easton, he was able to land just enough shots to edge out the decision and kind of keep away. Dillashaw, though, I'd say has the power advantage. We have seen Assunção knocked out before by Eric Koch. But think about this fight again, I'm going to go with Dillashaw. He's an up-and-comer. I think he's got more fire, more passion. I do think he'll be able to take Assunção down. He is a good wrestler, and he's at alpha male. And his hands, all those alpha male guys, their hands are getting really good under Dwayne Ludwig. But a really important fight, big step up in competition for Dillashaw. This fight will really, if he can win this fight, he'll definitely move closer to that top 10. Probably in that top 10. Bantamweight is wide open, but I'm high on Dillashaw. I won't be surprised, though, if Assunção is a little too crafty, if his experience if he uses his experience, if his experience, comes through, helps him win this fight. If he's a little too seasoned for Dillashaw, I wouldn't be surprised, but I'm going to go with Dillashaw. Next up at welterweight, Rousimar Toquinho Palhares versus Mike Pierce. Palhares, when this guy, every time this guy seems to put together a run, he he ends up losing a big fight. He's up and down. He's had 2 3-fight win streaks in the UFC, and both ended. Looking at his record, though, his only losses have come to pretty good guys. Dan Henderson, Marquardt, Belcher, and Lombard. But the only time we've seen Palhares being effective with his striking was against Dan Miller, and I don't think he's going to be able to stand with Mike Pierce. Mike Pierce will definitely have a huge power advantage, and Palhares will be diving for the leg. By far, I think the best leg lock submission guy in the UFC, maybe ever, and very dangerous with that heel hook, his signature move. And I do give him a chance to land that on Pierce. But if you remember, Pierce fought another very dangerous submission guy a while ago, Carlos Eduardo Rocha, and Pierce completely stayed away from his submission game and was able to make that a really boring fight, and completely nullified the submission game there. So I don't think Pierce is going to get caught in a leg lock. He seems too game for that. And on the feet, Pierce, he's got big power. He takes a while to get going. You can see that in his last fight against David Mitchell. I believe it took until the second round for him to get the knockout. Pierce likes to push guys up against the fence a lot, likes the dirty boxing in close, the clinch work. I think that might be hard to do against Palhares, but Pierce also has wrestling, and Palhares, I think really his only chance, like I said, is diving for those heel hooks, and I don't think he's going to get that on Pierce. So I'm going to take Pierce. I do think he'll be able to finish him with strikes. But then again, that Rocha fight, this could turn out much like that. Next up, light heavyweight Fabio Maldonado versus Joey the Mexicutioner Beltran. I have to go with Beltran. Fabio Maldonado, I think he's in the lower tier of the light heavyweight division, which is pretty bad because that division is very weak. Just coming off of a win over Roger Hollett to end a 3-fight losing streak. Really known for his body shots. When guys wrap up that plum tie on him, he goes to work on the body, has really good body shots. He's basically a boxer, throws a high volume of strikes, but doesn't come forward very well. Kind of lets guys come to him, and then he starts to fire away. Teixeira dominated him, nearly finished him, showed a lot of heart, very tough in that fight, did not allow Teixeira to stop him, but I have to go with Beltran. Beltran's last fight, I think he really turned the corner, showed a lot of improvement. His fight against Igor Pokrayets, basically in that fight went from being a brawler to a guy who fight smart, push you up against the cage, and his hand speed looked really improved in that fight too. Was throwing big combinations and then would hold Pokrayets up against the fence, find an opening for another big combination, and then clinch up again. It was a really nice performance, and I think he can do the same to Maldonado, push him up against the fence, kind of rough him up, control him, kind of ragdoll him, keep the fight in close, and I think he's tougher than Maldonado too. Even though I said Maldonado is really tough, he is, but I think Beltran will come forward more and be more aggressive. Next up, at light heavyweight, Thiago Silva versus Matt Hamill. Matt Hamill coming off a year-long layoff. his last fight against Roger Hollett, where he looked okay. Basically took him down and was able to just ground and pound him basically for the whole fight. But Hamill does not do well against good strikers. Got knocked out by Gustafsson. Had nothing for Rampage in their fight. The guy's stand-up is not good. Average at best. Thiago Silva, I think he is not at the top of his game anymore. I think he's long past that. Coming off a 2-fight win streak, submitting Stanislav Nedkov. That fight was overturned. This guy's always having, drug problems, or, he's always testing positive for something. And his last fight against Javier Cavalcanti, won by knockout, but seemed to be in a bit of trouble early in that fight. Cavalcanti was coming forward, catching him with some stuff. But Matt Hamill, I don't think he has the chin or the striking defense to hang with Silva for any amount of time. And I don't think Hamill can take him down. Hamill's not an athletic guy. He's more of a kind of a brute strength guy. Ragdolls people. That's how he's been able to win a lot of his fights. Doesn't have much speed. I think Silva will be able to keep away and really land some big shots on Hamill, put him down. And I've enjoyed a lot of Hamill's fights. I don't understand why he's still fighting. I think he should have stayed retired. But if he can get this win, it'll be a big win for him and put him back in the thick of things. Next up, co-main event, Eric Silva versus Dong Hyun, the stun gun Kim. Everybody's saying, how Joe Silva is mismatching Silva, putting him up against too stiff competition, but I don't see it that way at all. Kim, he's been really good in his last few fights. Sensational grappler, great control. Not a dangerous submission guy. Doesn't seem to threaten with a lot of submissions. His last 2 fights against Paulo Thiago and CR Bahadurzada, who I don't think are anywhere near the level of Eric Silva, is able to basically control them for the whole fight on the ground. Very good back control, top control. Guys can't get out from underneath him, but I think Silva's too deadly on the feet, too quick. I don't think his wrestling is as good as John Fitch. We know Silva lost to Fitch, but even that fight did really well and had moments where he almost choked Fitch out. So I think Silva's just going to be too good, too dangerous with his hands, too fast. Kim, he can definitely get the takedown. I don't think he can keep Silva down for the whole fight. Not at all. We saw him in Silva's last fight. The guy's got sick jiu-jitsu. I'm real high on this guy. I think he's going to beat Kim, and I do think this is the right fight for him. He needs to fight a mid-level guy, with some skill, who's not going to, who you wouldn't think he's going to walk through, but who's not a top-level guy like Fitch. This is the fight for him, and he definitely needs to win this fight to live up to the hype, and I think he's going to get it done by TKO. Next up, main event, Damian Maia versus Jake Shields. I gotta call this one. I think it's gonna be a shit kickboxing match. I hope it's not, but Maia, although he's had a transformation as of late, going back to his jiu-jitsu roots, we know he's been inclined to kickbox in the past, and that seems that's all that Shields does these days is kickbox. And if it turns out to be a kickboxing match, I gotta give it to Maia. I just think he's more polished there. Neither guy is dangerous with their stand-up, but Maia has shown he can be more effective with his stand-up. In the grappling department, Maia blew me away, out grappling John Fitch in his last fight, and Shields, a good takedown guy, good control in the UFC. He has not shown any of his submission ability, not coming close with any submissions in the UFC against guys who aren't, top level grapplers like Ed Herman. Couldn't even get Akiyama down. So I don't think he's going to have anything for Maia in the wrestling department. On the ground, I could see Shields maybe getting on top for a little bit, having some success in top position, but Maia very slick off his back and definitely has the more versatile and the more dangerous submission game. So I have to go with Maia. I think it's going to be an easy fight for him. Shields has never been dangerous with his hands and hasn't been dangerous with his jiu-jitsu since coming to the UFC. So you got to go with Maia. I wish they'd give him, I wish he would have fought a more highly ranked guy. I want to see how far he can go if he can actually get that title shot. And Shields, unfortunately, I think this will be the end of him. He's had a great career in Strikeforce, but since coming to the UFC, he's been able to pick up some wins against some good guys like Tyron Woodley, but just a totally different fighter in the UFC. That deadly submission game has been completely gone. That's how I see it anyways. But anyway, those are my predictions for UFC Fight Night 29, Maia versus Shields. Thanks a lot for watching, guys. Please like the video, comment, let me know what you think of my picks. Please subscribe, and I'll see you guys later. Check out my recap for UFC 165, Jones versus Gustafsson, and I'll be back next week with my recap for this event. So take care, you guys. See ya.